Hey, Mama, sit down. Last week, we talked about grandparent competition, and judging by the responses, that episode struck a nerve, like a deep nerve, the kind where people are typing in all caps and sending voice memos at midnight. So, first, thank you. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for proving that I'm not the only one who's ever wanted to run away from a family dinner and never come back. But this week, I want to clarify something because after hearing from so many of you, I realized there's a piece of this conversation we did not finish. Welcome back to Mama Sit Down, the podcast where moms of adult children reclaim their lives one boundary at a time. I'm Roxanne Hughes, and today we're going deeper. Last week, I said grandparenting is not the Olympics. And most of you said amen. But here is another thing that I heard underneath all those responses. Most grandparents are not actually trying to compete. The truth is, some of them feel pressured to prove their love, pressured to show equal support, pressured to not disappoint anyone. And sometimes that pressure does not even come from the other grandparents. It often comes from the adult children themselves. Now, before I go any further, I want to tell you something a little personal. Because if you know me at all by now, you know I do not get to preach on something I have not lived through myself. For years, I had what I call a scorekeeper in my life. And honestly, I don't think they even meant to be one. It started with one phone call, just one, from one of my adult children. They were trying to point out that they felt I had been spending more time with one grandchild than another. Now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable, right? I mean, nobody wants their child to feel less loved. I certainly do not. But, friend, that one phone call sent me on a journey that lasted years. Years of trying to balance the perception of fairness, years of mentally tracking who I visited last, who I helped most recently, who I called first this week. Years of feeling like I needed to get ahead of the next call before it came. I did not even realize I had created a scorekeeper in my head, but I had. And once that voice moves in, it is very hard to evict. Because I was not just afraid of being unfair, I was afraid of falling behind. And the moment love becomes something you can fall behind on, you have left love and walked straight into performance. And before I even realized what was happening, I had spent years, friend, trying to prove that I loved everyone exactly the same amount. Equal portions measured out like I was following some kind of emotional recipe. 2 cups of showing up for her, 2 cups of showing up for him. Don't forget to stir. Somebody's going to notice. And you know what all that measuring got me? Exhausted, resentful, and still never enough. Because here's the thing about scorekeepers. The score is never actually even. Not really. Because they're the ones holding the clipboard. Here is what nobody tells you about this season of life. Grandparents start feeling like they must give equally, show up equally, help equally, like love is some kind of federal budget that has to balance at the end of the fiscal year or somebody's going to audit you. But life does not actually work that way. And relationships sure do not. You have different grandchildren with different needs. You have different adult children in different seasons. You have your own health, your own energy, your own capacity that changes from week to week, sometimes day to day. And none of that means you love anyone less. But the scorekeeper does not want to hear about capacity. The scorekeeper wants the numbers to match. Here is what happens when we let someone else's scoreboard run our lives. Love turns into comparison. Did I do enough compared to last time? Comparison turns into resentment. Why am I always feeling like I'm being measured? And resentment turns into performance. Now, you are not loving your family, you are managing their perception of you. And friend, that's a full-time job that does not pay anything and has terrible benefits. I remember one particular season where I was so twisted up trying to make sure no one felt less loved that I was not actually loving anyone well. I was just administrating, running around with my invisible clipboard, making sure every column added up. My husband looked at me one day and said, "You know you can just love them, right? You do not have to prove it." I wanted to be annoyed at him, but he was right. He usually is, but do not tell him I said that. So here is the line I want you to write down. Put it on your mirror, put it on your phone. Tattoo it somewhere if you're feeling bold. Your job is to love your children. Your job is not to manage their perception of fairness. You are not the Department of Equal Love Distribution. That is not a position God created, and it is not one you were ever hired for. Because the moment you take that job, you have handed someone else the keys to your peace, and they will drive it right off a cliff. You can love one child through a health crisis, and another through a divorce, and another through a season where everything is fine. And none of those things need to look identical to be real. Fairness is not the goal. Sincerity is the goal. Now let's bring God into this for a second, because I think sometimes we forget that He never asked us to prove our love through equal distribution. He asked us to love generously, to love freely, and to trust Him with the rest. God does not love us all the same way in every single moment either. He meets us where we are. He gives grace where grace is needed. He gives strength where strength is needed. And I do not think He checks a spreadsheet to make sure the numbers are balanced before He shows up for us. So why are we doing that for our families? If someone in your life or in your head is holding a clipboard and waiting for your love to add up to their satisfaction, that is not a reflection of how much you love. That's a reflection of probably a wound they are carrying that they need to heal from that is not yours to heal. You can have compassion for that wound. You can love them through it. You can pray for them, but you cannot fix it by performing harder. So here's what I want to leave with you today, Mama. If you're exhausted trying to make sure nobody feels less loved, I want to give you permission to step off the scoreboard. Just step right off it. Because love is not measured in equal portions. It is measured in sincerity. It is measured in showing up the way you genuinely can, with what you genuinely have in the season you are genuinely in. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop playing a game you were never meant to win. You cannot love people into feeling loved if they have decided the evidence is never enough. But you can choose to love freely, give generously, and hand the clipboard back because, friend, that clipboard was never yours to carry. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. If this episode hit home, share it with someone who is tired of keeping score. They need to hear this. And if you would, subscribe to Mama Sit Down wherever you listen. And if you have not left a review yet, it would mean the world to me. It helps more mamas find this community. Next week, we're going to keep going. Until then, breathe, rest, put down the clipboard, and remember, it's your time now.